So Procter Gamble basically took a victory lap today for beating earnings, but the whole thing looks a lot less shiny when you realize they mostly just, well, sold off their garbage bags.
Literally. I mean, they sold their minority stake in the Glad joint venture to Clorox. That handed them actually it was a $261 million after-tax gain. Without that paper boost, the core earnings are definitely dragging.
Right, which is exactly what we do here on Earnings Unscripted, stripping away the polish. It is April 24th, 2026, and we are looking at P&G's third quarter. And real quick, this is just our personal opinion, not financial advice, so please don't build your retirement portfolio around our soap preferences.
I definitely wouldn't recommend that. But look, the headline numbers are tricky here. Net sales came in at $21.24 billion. That is, sure, it is up year over year, but it actually fell 4.4% sequentially from last quarter.
And the earnings per share, the diluted EPS, was $1.63. But like you just said, if you back out that Glad sale, their core EPS was really only $1.59.
Yeah, the top line is kind of a mirage right now. The real pain is the margins. Gross margin well, it compressed heavily. They dropped from 51.2% down to 49.5%. That is 170 basis points gone in 3 months.
Wow. Because of inflation, or what was it?
Unfavorable product mix, tariffs, some ad reinvestment, and honestly, the organic volume only looks decent because retailers were buying ahead of expected price hikes and basically hoarding inventory before Easter.
Okay, so they effectively borrowed sales from the upcoming fourth quarter.
Exactly. They pulled demand forward, which explains the weird whiplash we saw in the stock price today.
Yeah, the pre-market gap up. The stock, ticker PG, opened way up around $152, but then it just sort of slowly faded the entire regular trading session.
Institutional guys were reading the same filings we are. They saw the volume pull forward and that gross margin squeeze, and they just steadily unloaded. It managed to close up maybe 1.5% from yesterday, but the momentum completely died intraday.
It makes sense, especially looking at the segments. Grooming and healthcare both dropped about 10% quarter over quarter. But there was this one crazy bright spot. Their ultra-premium skincare brand, SK-II, was somehow up 18% in China. China, of all places, where consumer spending is practically frozen right now.
Pure luxury defies gravity, I suppose. But you know what really caught my eye wasn't the consumer data at all. It's what the CFO said about their supply chain. They're quietly rolling out autonomous robotics to literally run their factory night shifts without human operators.
Wait, an entirely unattended factory floor? Okay, we absolutely need to unpack that. Let's get into the details.
It is, actually. They are calling this internal push Supply Chain 3.0, and it is basically AI and automated logistics scaled up to the point where they just remove humans from the night shift entirely.
Wait, completely empty? Just a dark factory floor?
Pretty much. They are using what they call digital twins to handle the pack lines and quality checks touch-free. So instead of fighting wage inflation or, paying massive overtime for graveyard shifts, the machines just handle it. Schulten actually joked that the feedback from the plant teams to skip the night shift is great.
Right. I am sure the robots do not mind the hours, but that is structurally huge. They're deleting inflation from the bottom up.
Exactly. But they're also playing with lighter tools, too, not just heavy robotics. They're hacking human behavior.
Oh, the dish soap anecdote. Yes, I read this. This is brilliant.
You saw the fairy thing.
I did. It's so smart. So apparently they realized that over 70% of British households have this compulsive habit of soaking their dishes in the sink before they even run the wash.
Right. Just making extra work for themselves.
Totally. So P&G did not invent some crazy new chemical. They just rebranded the product as Fairy Skip the Soak. They told consumers, hey, stop doing the thing you hate doing. And household penetration for the brand jumped 5 full percentage points in 1 year.
Which took them up to 61% of homes in the UK.
Exactly. I mean, it's just basic human psychology doing the heavy lifting there.
It's a great story. story. Although I was going to say, actually, it makes that margin collapse we talked about earlier look even worse.
How so?
Well, if you have all these automated efficiency wins and these cheap organic marketing victories, and you still drop 170 basis points in gross margin, that implies the underlying cost pressure is just brutal right now.
Fair point, but management does not seem panicked. In fact, it is almost, arrogant, the way they talked about margins.
Yes, the analyst Q&A session. Someone pushed CFO Andre Schulten on exactly where this margin balance lands, and his response was, well, you don't usually hear this.
He basically told them to stop looking at the numbers.
Quote, the honest answer I will give you is, I do not know. The second part of the answer is, I do not really care. End quote. He literally told Wall Street he does not care if gross margin dilutes, provided they keep driving top line and underlying productivity.
Wow. Okay, yes, but are they just whistling past the graveyard? Because, Miro, we know Q4 is bringing some massive structural hits.
Right, the Middle East squeeze. The Red Sea shipping blockages are completely upending their freight routes.
And that's not some vague risk anymore. They actually put a hard number on it.
They did. They locked in a guaranteed $150 million after-tax penalty, landing specifically next quarter. They're literally having to substitute raw materials at scale because standard feedstocks can't get through the transit corridors.
Geez, so they're just reformulating on the fly to keep product on the shelves.
Exactly. Plus, Schulten went out of his way to model oil sensitivity. He warned that if crude climbs back to $100 a barrel, that triggers a $1 billion after-tax hit to the P&L.
$1 billion. Okay, so that totally explains the preloading game. They built up this whole inventory sandcastle in Q3 because they knew they're walking into a buzzsaw next quarter.
Yep, it's volume built on borrowed time.
Okay, so zooming out from all of this, where does that leave them heading into the rest of the year?
Well, it leaves them, frankly, lowering expectations. I mean, they technically maintained the full-year guidance range, but Schulten was very blunt. He said on the call, quote, we now expect full-year EPS results to be toward the lower end of the guidance range.
Okay, yeah. Which is refreshing, at least. They are not trying to, pretend that Q4 is going to be pretty.
No, not at all. The Q3 volume pull forward is definitely going to boomerang, so they told investors to expect organic sales to drop sequentially. Plus, they just have to absorb that Middle East logistics penalty we talked about.
But zooming out, I really think we have to give them credit for the broader strategy here, because they are aggressively, or actually I should say structurally, preparing for that ugly reality. All that supply chain 3.0 stuff, the robotics, that is them realizing they cannot control ocean freight or oil prices, so they just have to obsessively control what happens inside their own four walls.
That is a really good way to frame it. It is basically an engineering solution to a geopolitical problem. And if it actually works, they come out of this cycle with incredibly lean operations.
Right. And in the meantime, they still pay the rent. They just marked their 136th consecutive year paying a dividend. That is almost unfathomable stability.
I mean, 70 straight years of dividend increases, too. They're locking in $10 billion in dividends and another $5 billion in buybacks. So Wall Street might throw a tantrum over the gross margin optics right now, but P&G is still writing the checks.
Exactly. It's kind of like watching a massive battleship updated software while actively under fire. It might look a bit clunky today, but it's certainly not sinking.
No, it's not. And I have learned a long time ago not to bet against the battleship.
Words to live by. All right, I think that's a wrap on Procter & Gamble for today. Thank you so much for exploring the numbers with us.
Take care, everyone.
If you want these earnings breakdowns to just automatically show up in your app, you can just go ahead and follow the feed. And as a quick transparent note, this show is generated using AI, which is how we manage to turn dense corporate filings into a conversation you can actually listen to on your commute. We're always taking requests for what to cover next, so just shoot us an email at earningsunscripted@datamadness.ca or grab that X link down in the show notes.
Get you on the next one.